In the heart of Upper Egypt, in the city of Minya, a young girl named Inshirah Moussa was born. She was not like other girls of her time. While many around her saw a future limited to the home, Inshirah had bigger dreams. Her father, a man ahead of his time, believed in her potential. He made a decision that was quite unusual for that era. He sent his daughter to school. He wanted her to be educated, to read, to write, and to see the world with open eyes. This education planted a seed of ambition inside her, a desire for a life that was more than ordinary, a life filled with excitement and importance. Little did she know, this very ambition would lead her down a dark and treacherous path. As Inshirah grew into a young woman, her dreams of a grand future continued to burn brightly. She imagined a life of wealth, travel, and respect. She finished her education, a significant achievement for a girl from her background. Soon after, she met a young man named Ibrahim Shaheen. He was a clerk, a simple man with a steady job, but in him, Inshirah saw a partner for her journey. They married, and like many young couples, they looked forward to building a life together. They decided to leave Minya behind, seeking new opportunities and a fresh start in the coastal city of Arish, located in the Sinai Peninsula. This move, they hoped, would be the first step towards the prosperous life Inshirah had always envisioned. Their new life in Arish began simply. Ibrahim worked as a clerk at the local directorate, and Inshirah managed their home. They started a family, and soon the sounds of their children, Nabil, Mohammed, and Adel, filled their small house. On the surface, they were just another Egyptian family, living a modest but stable life. However, beneath this calm exterior, Inshirah's thirst for more never faded. The routine of daily life felt restrictive, and the limited income from Ibrahim's job was a constant reminder of the gap between her reality and her dreams. She craved luxury, adventure, and a sense of power, feelings that their simple existence in Arish could not provide. This growing discontent made her vulnerable, creating a void that greed would soon fill. The city of Arish was geographically significant, situated on the edge of the Sinai Desert, close to the border. It was a place where different worlds met, a hub of activity that was both strategic and sensitive. For the Shaheen family, it was just home, a place to raise their children and live out their days. They were unaware that the political tensions brewing in the region were about to erupt and change their lives forever. The peaceful blue waters of the Mediterranean and the quiet desert landscape masked the storm that was gathering. Their move to Arish, which was meant to be a step towards a better future, had unknowingly placed them directly in the path of a conflict that would test their loyalty and ultimately seal their fate. The world changed for the Shaheen family in June 1967. The Six-Day War broke out, and in a matter of days, the Israeli army occupied the entire Sinai Peninsula, including their home city of Arish. Suddenly, they were living under military occupation. Life became incredibly difficult, work was scarce, prices skyrocketed, and a cloud of fear and uncertainty hung over everyone. For Ibrahim Shaheen, the situation was desperate. He lost his job, and with 3 young sons to feed, he felt the crushing weight of failure. The stability they once had was gone, replaced by a daily struggle for survival. This hardship was the perfect storm, creating an environment where desperation could easily lead to a terrible decision. One day, an Israeli intelligence officer, known by the codename Abu Jacob, approached Ibrahim. The officer saw a man who was broken, desperate, and financially ruined. He made Ibrahim an offer that seemed, at the time, like a lifeline. He promised him money, a lot of it, in exchange for information. Ibrahim, seeing no other way to provide for his family, was tempted by the devil's bargain. He was persuaded that this was not about betraying his country, but simply about surviving. He was told he could secure a future for his children, a future that the war had stolen from them. The initial offer was small, a simple test of his willingness to cooperate, but it was the first step down a path from which there would be no return. When Ibrahim returned home and confessed to Inshirah what he had done, he expected her to be shocked or angry. Instead, her reaction was the opposite. The news of quick and easy money ignited the ambition that had been dormant within her for so long. She didn't see betrayal, she saw an opportunity. This was the exciting, high-stakes life she had always dreamed of. She encouraged her husband, not with hesitation, but with enthusiasm. Inshirah quickly became the driving force behind their espionage activities. Her sharp mind and her thirst for a life of luxury made her a more natural and more dangerous spy than her hesitant husband. She was not just a participant. She became the leader of their treacherous operation. The couple was officially recruited into the Mossad, Israel's national intelligence agency. They were given code names. Ibrahim became Dimo, and Inshirah became Dina. Their mission was simple at first: report on the conditions in Arish and the morale of the Egyptian people under occupation. But this was only the beginning. They were promised wealth, foreign travel, and a new life full of the glamour they craved. The Israeli officers showered them with gifts and money, feeding their greed and making them feel important. For Inshirah, the dream was finally coming true. She was no longer a simple housewife in a forgotten town. She was a secret agent, living a life of danger and intrigue, a far cry from her humble beginnings in Minya. As their involvement with the Mossad deepened, Ibrahim and Inshirah realized they needed to expand their operation. To gather more valuable intelligence, they had to move back to the Egyptian mainland. They convinced the Israeli officers to help them relocate to Cairo, arguing that they could provide much more critical information from the nation's capital. The Mossad agreed, seeing the potential in having assets so close to the center of Egyptian power. The Shaheen family left the occupied Sinai and settled in Cairo, presenting themselves as patriots who had fled the Israeli occupation. They used the money they received from their handlers to rent a nice apartment and establish a life that appeared normal, all while secretly working against the very country they claimed to love. In Cairo, their mission evolved. They were trained in advanced espionage techniques. They learned how to use invisible ink to write secret letters and how to operate a sophisticated radio transmitter to send coded messages directly to their handlers in Tel Aviv. Their apartment became a secret hub of spying activity. Inshirah, with her sharp intellect and careful nature, excelled at these tasks. She meticulously managed their communications, ensuring their messages were sent without detection. The family home, which should have been a sanctuary for their children, was transformed into a nerve center for treason, filled with hidden devices and dangerous secrets that put the entire family at risk. The corruption of their mission soon spread to the next generation, as their sons, Nabil, Mohammed, and Adel, grew older. Inshirah and Ibrahim made the fateful decision to involve them in their espionage work. They saw their own children not as innocents to be protected but as assets to be used. The boys were tasked with simple but dangerous jobs, like acting as lookouts or carrying messages. They were drawn into a world of lies and secrecy, their childhood stolen and replaced with the heavy burden of their parents' betrayal. The entire family was now aspiring, working together to sell their country's secrets for personal gain, a complete betrayal of the values they were supposed to uphold. For years, the Shaheen family operated successfully. They traveled to Europe, specifically to Rome, under the guise of business trips. These trips were actually meetings with their Mossad handlers to receive new instructions, updated equipment, and large sums of money. They lived a life of luxury funded by treason. They bought expensive clothes, lived in a comfortable home, and enjoyed a standard of living far beyond what Ibrahim's old job could have ever provided. They felt untouchable, believing their cleverness and the support of the Mossad made them invincible. But they were wrong. The Egyptian General Intelligence Directorate was silently and patiently watching, slowly closing the net around them. The downfall of the Shaheen spy ring began with a moment of carelessness. One of their sons, Mohammed, was conscripted into the Egyptian army. During a visit home, he spoke too freely about his military unit's location and movements, information that his parents immediately passed on to their Israeli handlers. This specific and sensitive information, transmitted over their radio, was the final piece of the puzzle for Egyptian intelligence. The authorities had been monitoring suspicious transmissions for some time, and this leak allowed them to pinpoint the source. The family's greed had made them reckless, and their carelessness had finally exposed them. The web of lies they had carefully constructed for nearly a decade was about to come crashing down. In August 1974, the end came swiftly. Egyptian intelligence agents who had been shadowing the family for weeks chose their moment to strike. They stormed the Shaheen apartment in Cairo, catching the family completely by surprise. Ibrahim was caught in the act, hunched over his radio transmitter, sending a coded message to Tel Aviv. There was no escape and no room for denial. The evidence was overwhelming. The radio equipment, the invisible ink, the coded documents, and the large sums of foreign currency. The family that had sold their nation's secrets was now caught in the grip of its justice. their life of luxury and deceit brought to an abrupt and terrifying halt. The trial that followed was a major public event in Egypt. The story of the Shaheen family captivated and horrified the nation. Here was a family, a husband, a wife, and their 3 sons, who had betrayed their homeland for money. The prosecution laid out the case in painstaking detail, revealing the extent of their treason and the damage they had caused. The court found them all guilty. The verdict was severe. Ibrahim Shaheen and Inshirah Moussa were sentenced to death by hanging for high treason. Their sons, due to their youth and the influence of their parents, were given prison sentences. The dream life that Inshirah had chased so desperately had turned into her worst nightmare. The final chapter of their story is a stark moral lesson. Ibrahim Shaheen was executed for his crimes in 1977, paying the ultimate price for his betrayal. Inshirah Moussa, however, had a different fate. As part of a prisoner exchange, she was released and sent to Israel, the very country she had served as a spy. But her new life was not one of glory. She lived in obscurity, forced to change her identity and haunted by the consequences of her actions. She had lost her husband, her sons were imprisoned, and her home country forever viewed her as a traitor. The story of Inshirah Moussa is a powerful reminder that treason never pays. The pursuit of greed and the betrayal of one's country lead only to a path of destruction, loss, and an end filled with shame.